Yes, I'm good. Thank you, Alison. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you. Yeah, well. So, Wendy, it's great. We decided to come together, didn't we, and share
Yep.
our experiences of being
uh,
dyslexic
Yep.
and, how it's just impacted us, school, life, and at Shore Trust.
Yes.
So, I think, well, let's kick off. I'm going to ask you, how did you find out that you were dyslexic?
Well, I was doing a master's degree at Goldsmiths University. And as always, I was struggling with processing information at speed. I got fed up with it because this is the way it's always been all of my life. So I thought, right, I'm going to go to student support. And they offered me an assessment and that they would pay for it as well. So I was assessed by a psychologist, and within an hour, they identified that I was indeed dyslexic. So, because of my age, it was obvious to him that I had devised my own strategies for getting by. So he didn't put me forward for the software devices or the book vouchers I hoped for. Instead, he recommended that I have extra time for assignment and exams, and that really helped. And I got my MA.
Well done. Well done.
And how about you? How did you get to know that you was dyslexic?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I was made redundant, and at first I was angry, like, why me? And then I thought, oh, do you know what? I've got the luxury of time and money, which doesn't normally come together. And I structured my summer around the 5 pillars of well-being, one of which is learning something new. So my written skills have always held me back in my professional life. So I decided to go back to college and join a GCSE English course. And I noticed I wasn't learning the same way as the rest of the class. I was processing information maybe differently or a little bit slower. So I approached the student support and was assessed and diagnosed as dyslexic. So I was given a tutor for 1 hour a week on a one-to-one basis who shared some strategies to help me learn like my spelling and putting assignments together. So if I was going to spell a word, for example, I would use pictures. So if I looked at the word aroma, which I always used to struggle with for some reason, I will now imagine Roman pillars. So I'll imagine the A,
Mm,
Roman pillars, and now
mm,
I can spell aroma.
yeah.
Taught me to plan my essays using a fishbone method, which is you literally have the problem or what you're trying to achieve at the top, and then a spine, and then fishbones that come out, and then on each of the fishbones you'll have like who, what, when, and where, and you just literally put all your ideas in those categories. And then
Mm,
I'd use the thing called a train carriage, so you have boxes all in a line. You could kind of do your beginning, middle, and end of a story or your report, and then you could plop whatever you put in under your fish bones into the appropriate boxes. And there, that helped me put my ideas and thoughts into order.
yeah.
So that's been a really good strategy, and has definitely helped me. Still struggle, and I still have to take time, but it's really helped me going forward. So thinking about that, how did this impact you at school?
Oh, well, I always struggled at school. I was terrible at English and I was terrible at maths. But what kept me going at school was my friends and the telling and reading of stories. Anything to do with stories, I just loved. So I taught myself to read because I found it difficult to learn from the teacher. And I read like a demon and explored the use of words. In primary school, they streamed classes. I was on table 4, surprise, surprise, the lowest. Tables 1 and 2, I noticed, were always filled with middle class students. Coincidentally, they were from families of diplomats, ambassadors, and doctors. Table 3 and table 4 were always a mixture of people, but one thing we had in common is that we were all poor. So I assumed that, my lack of ability to learn was to do with being poor. And I grew up feeling stupid and worthless, although I know that, that was actually not the case. So in secondary school, the same streaming process was in place. When I started in year 1, that's today's year 7, I was placed in a special read to write unit. I was there for a couple of years. Exam time but by the time I was in year 5, so that's today's year 11, I was put through to for the CSEs.
Yes.
So that's today's GCSE, but you can only get a D or below. But there was one teacher, Mr. Frankel, a lovely Czechoslovakian man and Holocaust survivor. I'll never forget him. He fought for me to do my GCE in English literature because I was so passionate about the subject. And I achieved a C without even finishing the paper. So imagine what it would have been if I actually finished the paper. I always have dreams about that. Anyway, he inspired me to do my A levels, but I did fail them miserably because I messed around so much. I sabotaged myself because I was just used to failing. After I left school, I went to work for a while, but got bored and decided to go back to further education college. And I successfully gained a B and a C in government and politics and sociology. And I went on to the School of Oriental and African Studies to study African history and social anthropology.
Wow, well done you. Well
Thank
done.
you.
That's an
Yeah,
achievement.
yeah, thank you. And how about you? How did you manage at school? Did you ever think you was dyslexic at the time?
No, no, Wendy. See, so when I was at school, I was called the rubber queen by my primary school teacher because I was always rubbing things out. And when you got further up the school, you could have an ink pen, and I'm left-handed. So as you wrote in ink, obviously everything smudged as I went across the page. So
Yeah.
my work just looked really messy. And
Mm,
so you're kind of like assessed on how neat your work is as well. So, I went into that box of not doing so great.
yeah.
Um, I had the best imagination for creative writing, but as I say, putting it into a neat, concise way was a struggle.
Mm,
I can remember the trauma of the weekly spellings, and my mum, who was a teacher, used to get incredibly frustrated with me because it was through repetition. My school was streamed as well, and somehow I managed to get into the B stream. I think my creativity and ability to connect with people helped with this.
yeah.
I didn't set any GCEs and took CSEs, and to be honest, I didn't really take them. My mum did because a lot of it was coursework, and she did most of it.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought, oh, what a result! But looking back, it did disempower me and made me feel a failure because I didn't come up to scratch. Um, I often felt like I was on a different planet, and the majority of the time thinking differently from the rest of the class. Consequently, I detached myself from school life and often would go in for registration and then just go home. I
Mm,
really didn't like school and left to go to work in an office because my mum thought that was the right path for me. And I wanted to be a baker or a hairdresser or cabin crew. So, all those practical, creative professions clearly back then was where I needed to
mm.
go, but was pigeonholed into somewhere else. Um, so that's quite interesting. There's some parallels for us, isn't there? That,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
interesting. So what has your experience been like working at Shaw Trust?
Well, great, great. As you know, I've been working for over 40 years. This is the first organisation I felt safe enough to disclose my learning disability. Not disclosing in past organisations has held me back professionally, and produced a lot of anxiety in my personal and professional life. So remember, I joined Shaw Trust initially as a participant on one of their contracts, the Aim for Work program, where I was encouraged to share my vulnerability and face my barriers back into employment. So when I applied for the post as an employment advisor, and I got it, I knew Shaw Trust was genuinely very, very committed to supporting people and helping them to progress. So with that in mind, I was determined not to allow my dyslexia to get in the way. So when I joined the Shaw Trust team, my manager, Anne-Marie Millington, she asked me if there was any disabilities I wanted to disclose. And I said yes, and she encouraged me to apply for the Access to Work grant. So one of their assessors came into the office. They actually assessed me and made recommendations on software and tools I could use to help me do my job. And it's been great. So although every now and again I do get anxious around deadlines, but on the whole, I'm performing really well, and I'm relieved that I no longer have to hide And in my supervision, we factor in planning and organisation and, you know, good strategies I can use to enhance my productivity. And it's just great not to hide. That's what I love more than anything.
Yeah. It's not so stressful.
Absolutely.
I think there's one achievement you're not sharing with us.
Oh my gosh, yes. I have joined the CEO shadow board. So I get to meet Chris Luck and the other board members once a month, which is just amazing. And, you know, funnily enough, Alison, I'm writing so many notes. I mean, my hand is tired after those sessions because I'm learning.
I get that too.
Yeah.
I find my hand gets tired as well.
Exactly. So so yes, I mean, I've got to say, Sure Trust is really good at giving people roadmaps for progression if you want it. So
Brilliant.
I'm taking it and I'm really enjoying it. Yeah.
All
So
right.
how about you? You know, how has your experience been at Sure Trust so far?
So my experience also has been positive from day one. Throughout the application process, I felt I was a person and not just a candidate number. Sure Trust is a disability leader, which means you automatically get an interview if you let them know that you have a disability, which I did.
Yeah.
And my first contact was with Mavis Jones, who was so friendly and really calmed me down and put me at ease. She told me what the process would be, which is really important for me to know what the next steps are and when they're going to happen. I felt comfortable to disclose my dyslexia and reassured that I wasn't being judged. In fact, it was thought of more of a talent than a disability. My manager, Michelle Jackson, gives me autonomy, but I know she's there to support me if I need it. She doesn't judge that I can't spell. I get my words back to front. Oh, I have short-term memory issues. And I often have creative moments, and Michelle kind of gives me that space and respect to explore those ideas. In previous organisations I've worked in, people have looked at me, kind of rolled their eyes, or didn't acknowledge what I suggested, or just actually said I was mad. My peers at Sure Trust are accepting of my dyslexia and support me by proofreading, giving me time to explain something, even when I get my words back to front, and are ready for my creative ideas. So I really do feel supported in my role.
Yeah.
I think outside of my team as well, there's a peer support group, and they meet on the first Tuesday of every month. So that's a good safe space for me to go to as well. And I think knowing that, you know, your manager is going to help you when you want to do access to work as well, that sort of process, that's really good to know that that's there as well. So, you know what, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Wendy. It's, you know, nice to sort of chat and share how you feel, knowing you're not the only person that loves a Sharpie pen and a Post-it note. And also, isn't it warming that we're in an organisation that fully sort of makes us feel included?
Absolutely. You know, I've got to say, with regards to this, they have put their money where their mouth is. I've got to say, you know, I just can't tell you psychologically how it feels to not harm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And also, you know, with the clients I'm working with, it's helping me to inform them what they actually are entitled to. Because the amount of dyslexia I have on my caseload is incredible. And I tell them about access to work, and I ask them, I say, make sure that the company you have applied to, are they disability confident? You know, these are bits of information that they didn't know about. And if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to pass that information on. So yeah, I'm really
a win-win situation.
Absolutely. We've made it so.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, Wendy, have a good day, and and we'll catch up soon.
Oh, absolutely, Alison. Take care. Always good to talk.
Bye.
Bye.